the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, known today as the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. I just, this time of year is my favorite time of year. And I just, especially as we're doing the, figuring out how we can improve students' access to financial aid, I think about the opportunities that I hope that we will create for, especially for all students in BC, but also for our Indigenous students to access the aid they need. For those of you who it's your first time, I suspect that everyone's pretty familiar with how we go. And Andrew has promised to let me know if I'm facilitating it wrong. Adrian has started the recording, and that will be available on YouTube. So going over to our, last time on MOD. So for Sprint 7, the team focused on the not information architecture, figuring out some integrations with CRA and also getting Zoe, who's one of the institution personas, set up. And now moving into the main event, Elise, tell us about the goals and context.
Sounds good, thanks. So just a reminder for folks, what we were targeting to accomplish this sprint was some of our technical activities were around, now that we have decided which form solution we're going to use, now let's go into the next level and figure out what are we using for which parts. So some of that work the technical team has been doing, starting to build a data model. I'm using some of the words and that I don't really know what some of them are, but there's some real technical work behind this. A data model. So how are we going to organize our data? And you're going to see some of that a little bit later. And it's really critical foundation work, which helps the team move things through in a quicker pace. Once we've made some of those decisions, we can reuse that information multiple times. And as you know, we have some new devs, so making sure that our new dev folks are onboarded, that they're aware of what's going on, how we're doing things, and of course, bringing them in as deep as we can right away. The UX and UI team, we've been focusing on the managing designation piece. So we're going to show you the designation renewal process from a UX UI perspective. Also starting to map out the user summary, the location user summary page. We've dove into the education program pool. This is this very large project, and so starting to look at how are we going to do that differently to make improvements. And I'm super excited for Lynn to share with you today her analysis of the student survey results that we held a survey in March. So she's going to share with us what that is. And then we're also going to show you some of the work that the dev team did around what Zoe is doing in the system. So adding a new location, and being able to move around inside the system to that new location. So some of this will feel like a little bit of review, but we're continuing to build on the work that we've done. So I want to just go over a couple of things in the business context, just to make sure, and I always think of things as we're going through. Oh, I should have mentioned that, but just want to flag for you that we do have the MOD metrics mini project is continuing on. Most of our other mini projects are either completed or nearing completion, but this metrics project is really critical. Adrian is leading this for us, and it's working on identifying those key measures so that we know, was this product successful? And it includes that qualitative data. And I'm telling you that, of course, because one of the pieces of that is the student survey. So you can see why we're doing certain things. And we're looking forward to sharing more of those metrics and what are the key measures there and how are we gathering that in coming weeks. That'll probably be on a non-demo day because it's more of a business thing. We're continuing to make changes on the program area, and this is we've jokingly called it a MOD mini project, but I think it's pretty big. It's also starting to move into its next phase. Neve is leading that project, and this is where we're moving to a place where we're looking at changing how we gather and then use information as it relates to program so that we can be more in line with our partners and other places across the ministry as well. And so there's some pretty fundamental changes there, and it's going to involve taking some program information and separating that from what we're referring to at this point. We might need to come up with a better name, but study period offerings. So we're not going to show you any of that today. We're looking forward to showing you some of that at our next sprint demo. But there's been some pretty exciting work being done in that area and more to come. So I did just want to remind folks as well that we are going to replace most, if not all, of the CRM, the Microsoft Dynamics functionality. And of course, just a reminder that folks are busy signing designation agreements probably as we speak. The institutions and programs team is supporting that, of course. And the decision has been made for the agreements that are signed for August 1st of this year. And after that, we'll go all the way through for 2 years. And that gives us a little bit of time to figure some of this stuff out so that we're not trying to go live at the exact same time as a whole bunch of agreements are coming due. And then as I alluded to in the sprint goals, I just wanted to flag for you that what hopefully you're starting to see is that we're trying to make sure that we build pathways that we can reuse. So you may have heard me say things like, well, we need to get them onto the main road. And so if there's exceptions, we're trying to have very few of them and then get people back onto the main road. And the reason for that, of course, is it's a lot easier for us to build the main roads and move people down them rather than building 17, 27, 92 side roads. And so what you're going to see today is the output of some of that work from a technical perspective of what are the approaches that we're going to take, how are we going to make these decisions, and let's create a couple of templates that we can use in order to apply some of those decisions. So you're going to see some of that a little bit. And as always, my caveat is that, of course, you're probably going to see some spelling mistakes. You might even see some other kind of errors. There's probably some language on there we need to improve. We're going to clean some of that up from the UX UI perspective a little later, but we're trying just to make sure that we've got the core elements in there. And just a reminder again, this is me doing my change management hat, a reminder that not all of the data that's in SFAS right now is going to come into the system on the first day. The system is going to call into what we call a data repository and then bring that in on an as-needed basis, because there's a lot of data in SFAS that we don't need in the system on day one. The difference, of course, is that for CRM, we are talking about pre-populating and making sure that the system has the institution accounts inside the system so that they don't have to set those up again. And we'll have to talk about what does that mean? Do we do that for all institutions, even if they haven't been active for 5 years? We haven't made any of those decisions, but as much as possible, we are trying to do that. So just wanted to give you that so that as we go through and show you some of the institution account pieces, we'll try to highlight whether that's relevant on day one or whether that's relevant a little bit later. But just wanted to remind folks of that. As always, as we're going through today, please put your questions and comments in the chat area. And at the end of the demo, we will come back and have a little bit more of a dialogue. So I think I'm going to pass it over and sit back and enjoy the show.
Wonderful. Thanks, Elise. And so now Rupa is going to walk us through the designation summary.
Hey, everybody. Okay, so yeah, what I wanted to kind of show today, there's a link in the mural board if you're having trouble seeing what I'm about to share on screen, but let me go ahead and share my Figma. Just taking over from you. Okay, so what we're seeing here is the beginnings of the Manage Institution section of the institution application. So this is for all the institutions that are going to be using our system. Again, just to reiterate kind of stuff we've talked about in the past. So the UI is going to be fairly similar to what the students are seeing. That's on purpose. It's so that we can reuse components and create a design system that works across both platforms. and eventually the third platform, which will be for the ministry users as well. And so on this screen, what I'm showing is the summary of designations for that institution. What you're going to be seeing here is the current active designation agreement. And then as well, you'll be able to see a table of your expired, or whatever you call it, old designation agreements that are from the past. The idea here is that you don't need to go to different pages to see details of your designation. You should be able to come here. You shouldn't have to dig through a repository of like 2009's designation agreement. You should be able to see it on here going forward. That's the plan. So let's jump to the next screen here. What I wanted to show is after you hit renew, you might have one that's not effective yet, but one that is upcoming. So you've signed it, but it's just not effective just yet. So we're just showing what that would look like here. So you've got your active one up top, and then your upcoming one shown below. Again, the table with all your past ones wouldn't really change there all that much. And then, yeah, when you're coming in here and you need to renew, you click that button as I mentioned. What I'm going to do now is jump you into what happens when you want to renew that designation. So we talked about our personas previously. So the persona that could be doing this task would be an administrative user from that institution, or it might even be the institution's signing authority. So if they come into this view, this message would be shown across the application. So when you log in, if you're up for renewal, you'd be seeing that on the homepage of the app, but you'd also be seeing it on the screen as well, just to give you an action. So let's go ahead and kick that process off. On this first page, all I'm saying is, hey, you're just a few steps away from renewing. Here's a few things that you're going to have to do in the upcoming screens. An option to cancel to go back to the previous screen, but let's dig in a bit more. So on this screen, what we're doing is we're mirroring what the initial onboarding step would have been, which is confirming the information of your institution. If you do need to make edits, you have the ability to do that on this screen. If you need to update any of those contacts, you can do that at this point. And then we're just showing you information of your locations. This is important because your locations need to be up to date, because you have the ability to select which of your locations are going to be designated in the next screen right here. So in this step, you're just going to confirm the locations you want to have designated. There's an option of yes, you'd like to have all of your locations designated. And if there is, for whatever reason, another location you don't want that to happen to, you can hit no and then unselect it here. On the next screen here, what this step is, if this was a administrative user from that institution, this would be just the final confirmation to confirm who the legal signing authority is, and letting them know that once you hit submit, this legal signing authority will receive a notification to sign the renewal documentation in the next steps. So let's move on over. Finally, they'll get a nice thank you message to let them know that their part is complete. And a notification will go out to, in this case, our persona is David. David is the institution signing authority. And so what he's going to do is he's going to log into our system from that notification, and he's going to want to go ahead and renew the institution's designation agreement. His part is a bit easier. All he has to do is sign a couple documents and enter the agreement with us. So on that final declaration screen, what you're seeing here is all of the schedules, A, B, C, D, in case we want it in the future, E, F, G, whatever schedules we want to add here, we can show that with the ability to show that I have read and agreed to the terms of all of them. And then finally down here, just again, signing digitally here, showing his name, his email address, confirming that's who he is, as well as acknowledging that the information is accurate, acknowledging that this is a future task that may require a bit more of a workflow, and it's the notion that staff from the institution cannot perform both checking student eligibility as well as confirming student enrollment. That's something that cannot be done by the same users unless they have an exception from us. And so right now what I've done is just added a check mark to let them know that, hey, this policy is true. You need to make sure you follow it. We may go a bit deeper in how we check for that in the future, so look forward to how we do that in coming sprints. But for now, just a check mark. And then just acknowledging I am who I say I am, and here I go. You go ahead and hit submit. And finally, you get a thank you, similar to the last one, where you can go back to the designation page. That is Designation Renewal in a nutshell. Yeah, that's what I've got.
Thanks, Rup. That's perfect. And now Lynn is gonna walk us through the survey.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to walk you through our student satisfaction survey that we had released in March of this year. You'll notice that I've added a PowerPoint link. So if you want to take a closer look, you can always download the PowerPoint. But I'm just going to take over the screen right now and just share the PowerPoint on my side here. And again, you can always go back to Merrill and take a closer look. So let's get right into it. So for the student satisfaction survey, click next there. So I'm just going to walk you through what the survey is. I'll give you some general insights. I'll go through the survey findings for our StudentAid BC website and also survey findings for our student financial aid application, which we call the dashboard. And then I'll talk about the goals and next step as well. So to give a bit of context for the survey that we had launched this March, we had launched 2 surveys. The first survey was on the website, and the outcome of what we asked was how easy or hard was it to find the information you need? And the second survey that we had launched was how easy or hard was it to fill out the student application on the dashboard as well. So we had asked students to rate their experience on a scale of very easy to very difficult. And the idea is that the students are satisfied with our products when it's easier to use. So this is pulling from a metric called CES, or Customer Effort Score. That's the methodology that we went with for this one, because it has close ties with usability as well in that sense. So we had collected both quantitative and qualitative results. We'd asked them to rate on a Likert scale of 7, very easy to very difficult, and then ask them, can you tell us more about why you answered that way? And that's going to help us paint a better picture of what the students are encountering today. So we had measured that for about 1 month. And then some general insights for both of the surveys. Overall, students had rated it was easy to find information and also apply. So that's actually for both of the surveys that we received. However, what I noted in the qualitative results was that, however, students who rated it easy still encountered frustrations along the way. So I'll kind of just share that with you. Again, overall, students did rate it was easy, which is sometimes hard to think about because, you know, sometimes if you're working with students who have a lot of frustrations, that's all you're hearing. But this is why I think we go out and kind of do these research as well, just to get paint a better picture. Just so some overall participant numbers. We actually had 98 students report their results, their findings on the website question, and 181 students for the application question. So I would say these are really great numbers because what I've done is I did some weekly assessments or really reports for myself to look for results or themes. And what I noticed that the themes did stabilize at 2.5 weeks, and that was around 50 people. So what we call that is a saturation point. And a saturation point just means that we are no longer finding insight, and the themes have just kind of stabilized and they haven't changed. So that was around 50 people at 2.5 weeks. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think that's something that we can use for the future as maybe our threshold. Of course, if we have more people, that's always great, right? So just some insight there. Going to the next screen. So just looking at the ratings itself. So this is on the website that we had asked, how easy or hard was it to find information you need on StudentAid BC? Again, overall, 28.6% said it was easy. That was the majority of that. 17.3 said it was somewhat easy. And then 14.3 said it's very easy. 11.2 and 11.2 said it was neutral and hard. So there was a tie there. And 9.2% said it was somewhat hard, whereas 8.2 percent said it was very hard. And again, this is out of 98 students there. Here is just some of the findings from the qualitative results that we had gathered as well. So of those 28.6%, these were kind of the key themes that I pulled out there. One student had said, most of the information is easy to find. If I have doubts, I do not know where to find something, I use the FAQ section for that. As part of the results for easy as well, we also had a few students kind of talk about how some of the content was confusing. Sometimes it can be confusing to find something because it's in a certain section with a different name. So I thought that was quite interesting that even though they rated it easy, there were just still small pain points. Of course, we're going to look to address those in the future website redesign refresh as well. So 17.3% said it was somewhat easy. This person said, I like the website, but there is a lot of information here. I personally need to call StudentAid BC phone number to help me find things on the website. So the second one, nuanced information about people with disability status and how our loans can be impacted in grad school could be easier to find. So another theme for findability there. And then 14.3% said it was very easy. I always receive responses from StudentAid BC to my concerns and letters in a timely manner. And then the other one is easy to search the website and extensive information on student loans and related services. Thank you. So here we are seeing positive quantitative results. Students rated it overall easy, but our UX work is just not done yet through some of the comments. And these are just small improvements that we can make that will make a huge impact in the future as well. So we have the opportunity for the next website redesign to address these pain points and also ensure it's easy for everyone, you know, that person with a disability status or Indigenous status or even out of province students, right? We want to try to target every student that we can. And I think by addressing that, it will naturally feed into that self-service principle so that we're not getting our phone lines busy or social media overwhelmed with folks contacting us there. So that was that. And then just some information about some qualitative information about what students have said when they said it was 11.2% hard. Somewhere you can find something, everything all in one place. Otherwise, it's very stressful to find what you need. Another findability issue there. And it can be hard to find answers to specific questions. One issue I had in the past was trying to find the answer to what StudentAid BC meant by full-time employment. So definitely we can be a bit more transparent in that. And then 9.2% said somewhat hard. It took me longer to find what I needed. I had to bounce around to different pages to find info. Seemed like info could be better positioned with related info. And then I want to know when I'm allowed to start my application for September, etc. And then 8.2% said it was very hard. This person said that your website is overwhelming and I don't know where to start. Sometimes there's a lot thrown at me on the home page. Okay. And so those are the qualitative results for the student satisfaction that we had measured on StudentAid BC in general there. For the second survey that we had posted on the dashboard, we had asked again, how easy or hard was it to fill out the student application? Here we're just under half who said it was easy. 22.4% said it was very easy. 18% said it was somewhat easy. 6.8% said it was neutral. 3.7% said it was very hard. 3.7% again said it was somewhat hard, and then 1.9% said it was hard. So this is again out of 161 students here. So out of the 43.5 who said it was easy, very clear instructions. I put off applying for student loans because I thought it'd be a very long, complicated process, but it was actually really easy and straightforward. Yes, but every year I wish I had more directions about where to find my previous months of studies other than always counting them up and hoping I have guessed correctly. So I think there's some opportunities for us to make it easy for students in the future with the applications that we're actually already implementing. So I think when we revisit the application section for the students, we'll talk more to how we're kind of improving on that front as well. So 22.4% said it was very easy. Your application form is fine, but the website should have a navigation bar so I can get back to my StudentAid dashboard. And I think that's just possibly a practice that we use, best practices back in the day. Today's best practice, we're gonna we're going to implement the newest best practice so that we ensure that we don't encounter these usability issues again. But that's something we're going to be applying for the new application as well. 18% said it was somewhat easy. The process got a bit easier since my last application. Some things about the application are still very confusing and need more clarification. The ability to autofill information that is unlikely to change from year to year would be greatly speed up the process there as well. So I think that's great as well, because we'll talk a little bit more about autofilling information then as well in the application questions. And then 3.7% said it was very hard. There was no indication that I had to submit certain paperwork by looking at the dashboard itself. So this is really great feedback that we need just to be more transparent in identifying kind of where the student is at in their journey so that they know where they're at and also where they're in the next steps. 3.7% said it was somewhat hard, not specific enough on what the form is asking for sometimes. I think we know that. And then 1.9% said it was hard, a lot of steps and a lot of waiting and needing more information was involved due to the fact that my parents currently live abroad and BC was their last Canadian province of residence. So that's also some good feedback, because we also want to help cater to those students that are have those scenarios too, and give them the answers that they need and to make it very easy for them to find. So here is just, I put together a comparison to take a look at both. Here, I thought it was really interesting to see kind of both at the same time. As we notice on the website here, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The results are evenly distributed. You know, we're getting a little bit more. It was easy, but etc. So I thought that was interesting that it was kind of a mixed bag for the website survey. On the dashboard survey, it's a little bit more weighing on the easy part of things. More than almost more than half or under half said it was 4.3.5%. So I thought this was kind of more weighted in that sense as well. So again, so that was the website and dashboard. So I think overall, you know, our students found our products relatively easy to use, which is, again, sometimes hard to believe, because especially since we're hearing from frustrated students a lot, I think it's also a great reminder that we are not the user. So by providing this user research as much as we can, it can help us make better design decisions and kind of think forward for the future as well, where we can identify those pain points and then improve upon. And I think this is what the survey did. The overall goal is this really is a temperature check for students' experience and satisfaction today. Some of these results may not be surprising for you. Some of these results may be surprising for you. I think it's great that we can get the temperature check for students today. Another goal for us was just to create a benchmark for our products. We currently don't have one. We now have one, which is really exciting as part of next steps. We have a benchmark now, and we're going to look to measure again in a different month, thinking August 2021 of this year. We think that perhaps we're going to look at do the different seasons or the stresses for the different months. Are they going to change some of those results? So I think that's going to be really exciting to take a look at in a busy month like August, when students are planning or getting back into that school mentality as well. I'll be able to provide a comparison report afterwards. And then the next steps further down the line is that we're going to have a benchmark, and then we're going to measure it again after launching MVP to see how our new product measures against our old product, essentially. So that was it. And again, if you'd like to go look in depth with this presentation, I do have a link on Mural as well. So back to you, Caitlin.
Thanks so much, Lynn. And now we will go over to Andrew for some info about the architectural designs and setup.
Hey, everyone. So I'm just going to take the screen back over again. Can't find the right monitor. All right, 1 sec.
I was so proud of myself that I had it zoomed in just perfectly. That was just a joke. Okay. That was just some vamping. Just vamping.
Can everyone see so far? Perfect. Sorry, my Teams is very slow right now. So with this, I'm not going to go too in depth here, just because I'm sure most people might eyes glaze over or something like that. For the technical bunch, if there's a desire to go in deeper, please let us know, and we can, of course, do that. One thing we were trying to do this sprint, especially, was with the onboarding of our new folks here, is also learning things deeper and really getting into it. And basically, like, the main goal was trying to establish guidelines of basically development going forward. So as I'm sure this is relatable to the business side as well, but the tech team, this might hit home for some of you. But like, having a million different ways of doing 4 different things isn't always sustainable. So what we try to do is, with these 3 diagrams here, is basically create ourselves guidelines of when we're approached with the tasks, we have a flow about how it's going to work. And the flow from the business side is pretty succinct, but on the technical side, we have 50 different ways that we could do different parts. And what we try to do is sort of establish, okay, when we have, I'm just going to open up this tab here. Again, not going to go too in depth here, but basically, when we approach a problem that basically has a certain data flow, that has a form on it, that has a workflow in the back. And what I mean by workflow is basically rules attached to it, like complex rules. We are going to try and continue this data flow. And again, for the most part, the actual like front end user system parts is basically like an institution user would do something, and then we have a system in the back, and then basically the ministry side does something, or we do some calculations in the back. So it doesn't look that complicated from the user perspective, but to do all the different parts and have the data saved in the right places and do different things, we want basically guidelines of how to do it. So we've come up with one for basically when we have a form and complex rules doing the same thing. We also have one that's much more simple when we have a form, but we don't have a workflow, which basically means things that don't have complex rules, we can cut a bunch of the parts out. And then if we don't have a form and we don't have a workflow, this is a pretty small time. It's very simple. It's super simple. So ideally, staying within these guidelines of how to basically build a system and approach problems and come up with the design for it, technical design, I should note, at least everything's consistent. So even if we have to change it, it's at least less work, because we don't have to figure out how we've done something. If we've done it 40 different times, this way at least it's like, okay, this should be built like this, and it is great, adjust it as need, and go from there. The other thing we've been doing is, this is again an iterative project for us, but basically entity relationship diagrams, or ERDs. Basically, this is what Elise was referring to as a data model. We're building it out as we go, but what we do before we approach sort of big features and big chunks of work is have a quick sync up of how it actually looks. I didn't put the boxes in the right place, so sorry, the lines are a little wonky, but it is there, and I can send you a copy if you like. I also have it here. And again, like, you can move stuff or do whatever. Again, I haven't organized the lines or anything yet, so it's not the nicest there. But basically, when you have institutions and students and how the different tables and stuff relate to each other, quite a technical thing, but in order to progress, you have to have that in there. As I'm sure everyone can relate to, you have to have data in the database and a structure to be able to apply any logic and use it. So that was one of our biggest goals this sprint, and I think we did a pretty solid job. Again, everything is of course draft, but at least we have guidelines that we can follow, and to basically make things easier for ourselves going forward, and have check-ins like every sprint or something like that about, is this still working for us? Do we have to change things? And it just makes things so much smoother in the big picture. And if we have more people come on board or anything like that, it's easier again, because it's just, it's sort of like pre-documentation almost for the technical side about, when you look at a thing, how's it kind of working? And this is a great first step to look at. It's not published anywhere yet. We'll likely be doing that next sprint, making sure it's in our Git or something like that, but it's not there yet. So if you want to pre-look at it, just let me know. With that, sir, I know that was a lot of talking, but yeah, if you want more info, just let me know.
Yes, and if you have any questions about that, feel free to put them in the chat. And next, over to Anne, who's one of the new folks on the team, to run us through the product review.
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. Hi, all. I will take the screen. So hoping that you all guys can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Today I'll be demoing how Zoe can move around and how she can add an institution location. So before that, I will pull up the site map so that you guys can know where we stand up in the map. So this is the institution. This is a site map of the institution. Here is our dashboard, and when you click the Manage Institution, we'll be having an option to see to manage the location. The Zoe will be having an option to manage the location. So inside the manage location, there will be two options. She can view the location summary as well as she can see the location details. So inside the location details, she can add, create, or edit, or view a location. Now I'm going back to the portal. So this is a page where when Zoe login, this is a dashboard page, and when she click the manage institution location, she will be redirecting to another page where she can see the institution summary. So these two pages are now in process. So this is a wireframe of this particular page. So now we have to build in this particular page, we will be having the summary of all those locations. And with this button, Zoe can add a new location. So now we have this button over here. When you click this button, it will be redirecting to another page. This page, it will be rendering the institution location form from the forms flow. Now I'm creating a new institution. Location name. Address 2 is not mandatory. Canada. I'm submitting my form. Once it is submitted, Zoe will get a alert box like it is created. So this is the UI form of our database. When you refresh here, you can see that the last location which Zoe created, it is captured in our database. Yeah, so that's it. This is how Zoe can create a new form. Yeah, back to Caitlin.
Good. I did also forget to go over one thing.
Go ahead, Andrew. Thanks, Anne. Welcome. Nice to see your face.
Thanks, Anne. Okay, let me just see here. Sorry, I'm just pulling it back up here. I do not have this link ready. 1 second, please. Oops, there we go. Getting a link. Okay. Okay. Sharing my screen again. So I did just want to show you roughly what one of those flows looks like. So now that you've seen what Anne was just showing there, I'm going to go through this just quickly at a high level here. So when an institution was adding a location, as you saw, she completed a form and hit submit. When she clicked add a location, it pulled up a form and then filled it in from that sense. So that's kind of going through here. And then once you actually submit it, what actually happened is it saved it to a couple different places and started another process. In here, this is just at draft state right now, but basically it got submitted to this other system here that we can then do other things with, things like approval, run workflows, and run that type of thing. So relating it back to here again, this is where like you can do human tasks, run complex rules and all that up here. And then from that, we can do basically anything with it. We can save it back to our database. We can call extra interfaces, send it off to do other different rules, basically a lot of different things. So again, I just wanted to sort of put an example to this after you've seen it. Again, I won't go too in depth with it yet, just because until everything's like this isn't like fully integrated and everything working yet. So it's that's just a bit of a sneak peek preview. But yeah, that's following the guidelines there. And you likely saw other ones of like the student profile, for example, or like the institution profile. When you're there, like student views the profile, it shows a form, you complete the form, and then it goes back and submits it to other systems. So again, that's sort of like how we're adapting using those guidelines. So in almost anything that's built, it should follow most of them. And again, could and will be adjusted going forward, depending on the direction there. Back to you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Andrew. So that is the presentation for this sprint review. And now Elise is going to tell you what you can expect going forward for sprint 9.
Sorry, guys, I press it, then it goes mute, then it goes unmute. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like afraid of getting the cup now. So yes! I don't want to be the one that talks on the mute. So before I tell you that, I need to tell you something that just popped into my brain, Andrew, as you were speaking. And I think folks that know me know that I function kind of in metaphors. So I had a metaphor, and you can tell me if this resonates for you. But I was thinking that what you've just been describing, Andrew, with the technical pieces and building functionality so that we can reuse it is kind of like Lego, right? And so Lego has designed the little 6 pieces, the 2 pieces, the 1 piece, the flat piece. And so you guys have designed those pieces now. And now when we present something to you, you don't have to build a new piece. You're able to pick up the right piece to use and put it in. And so you're building out those Lego pieces. Just an insight into how my brain works. And you guys can tell me if that's a useful metaphor or not. So that is sprint 8. What are we going to do next? As folks know, we'll wrap up the sprint today, and our next sprint starts this afternoon after we define our goals. What we're hoping to achieve in the next sprint is that we're going to start getting ready. We're starting to turn our attention back to the student application. And that means starting to get ready for how are we going to input all of the application assessment rules into our system. We need to figure out the data model for the education program, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some stuff with you in a couple weeks about that. And we're going to continue to move forward with the work that's being done to integrate our system with the Canada Revenue Agency. From a UX UI side, our hope is to finish a user research plan. So as you can see, Lynn provided a summary of a piece of user research, but there's more. We want to hear from other users, yourselves included as staff. So, but also our institution partners as well as students. We're going to continue to work on program, and you'll notice that we're starting to introduce this idea of there's basic program information, which is information that largely stays static. And then there's dynamic study period offering information. So the dates, cost, those kinds of things. So starting to separate that out, and we're going to show you some of our initial thinking in a couple of weeks. We're also going to start to map out the site map for the student account. So you'll notice that Anne whacked through, this is the one with the blue boxes, the institution account site map, and so we're going to build an equivalent. And so this is hopefully your table of contents, something that you can use if you go, oh, how does that fit? Going back to that site map and saying, right, okay, if I want to go there, then I go here. Just helps you understand how we're going to capture information. So we're going to do another one for student account. We're going to keep working on inside the institution account, inside the location. What are they going to see about student applications? Because we know institutions need to confirm enrollment, they need to report withdrawal. How are they going to see that? So we're going to start working on that. And we're starting to get ready to have the confirmation of enrollment conversation. And as much as possible, can we build a confirmation of enrollment process that can be reused for multiple programs? For example, for the tuition waiver program, as well as for the full-time and part-time application. That's something we're exploring. And then the dev team is also going to be building and making sure that we can navigate all throughout that institution account, that we're not missing any pages or anything like that. And we're also going to focus on adding the institution users. So we haven't shown you that, which we're looking forward to in 2 weeks as well. So it's going to be a busy sprint and definitely lots going on. So thank you so much to everybody for that, and questions and comments are certainly invited, and I think we're starting to see some of them come in. And my apologies if I'm not looking at the screen. I do have a second screen now, very exciting. So it's not just my Surface Pro that I've been using for the last 13 months. And man, oh man, was I crazy not to do this. The Surface Pro is about, or the new screen is about 2.5 times what I'm used to, but it means I'm not facing the Surface Pro. So sorry if you're getting my profile there. So, so I think we're starting to get to some questions. I think we've kind of answered some of the initial points that came up. Let's see. Does the new location not have a submit a program? So yes, we absolutely know that a new location needs to be evaluated to make sure that it is eligible to have the designation of the legal entity extended over it, and because each location needs to be eligible for designation. So I don't think we showed you that today, but yes, it will, absolutely will. And as much as possible, we're going to build that in and automate that process as well. There was a comment about capital letters or small letters for BC, and so good catch. Yes, we're going to need to go through and do some cleanup. We're not quite there yet, but do some cleanup about what are the rules for those field validations. Do they have to be caps? Does the postal code have to be in a certain format? All of those kinds of things. We haven't built all of those, although we've built some of them. So my apologies if you're seeing some inconsistency, but we will need to do some tidying up of that as we go forward. So then there's the comment about institutions will have very little ability to change information. Yes, because once they've been determined for eligibility, then we don't want them going back and changing. So we need to identify what are they allowed to change, and if they change something, what does that trigger? We absolutely have not done that. The approach that we're taking right now, just so folks know, is as much as possible, we're trying to get the fields in and kind of try to get them in the right place, but we haven't added all the rules on top of it yet, because we just need to start somewhere. So that's how we're doing it right now. So what you're not seeing yet are us applying the rules of, if you answer this, then this doesn't show up, or this must be in this format, or those kinds of things. So so we will be getting to more of that as we come. And then the conversation about, as Rup alluded to, the conversation about signing officers is definitely one that we're starting to have a conversation about. What information do we need to capture? What information could we capture differently? How do we monitor this? That's definitely part of the conversation. So we know that we need to do some more work in the, particularly as it relates to the signing officers. So that is definitely not done, but it's started, as you can see. What else do we have?
That looks like that's so far. That's all the questions. Any other questions or feedback or ideas or? No news is good news, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we got to give folks time to type in something.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. One from Neve.
Will institution be able to provide input on the institution account structure? BC publics and privates with multiple locations delivering the same program may want the ability to see their programs at multiple locations. So yeah, no, that's a good point. And I know certainly the UX, UI and other folks have heard me say multiple times, well, I'm giving you my opinion, but we need to ask the users, right? We need to ask them, what do they need? How do they need it? So at this point, we're trying to create something to push off from so that we can then take it to the users and say, what about this? Show us how that works. Where are we at? That being said, we are talking about, as much as possible, making some fundamental decisions that we're not going to ask users for their input on some of those fundamental structure pieces. Where something might go on the screen or some of those kinds of pieces, absolutely we want to know, but some of those data model pieces, we may or may not be up for negotiation. And I can't give you an example of that right now, but yeah. So actually I can. For example, are we going to ask institution users, do you want to have an institution account and a location? That's not what we're going to ask them. We have made the decision that all institutions will have an institution account and one or more locations. But we can ask them to say, when you're in your location, how do you want this information presented? Or should this be in this view or that view? Some of those kinds of things, but there are some pieces that we won't be asking. Now, of course, if they tell us something and it really makes us go, oh, of course, we'll need to consider that, but we'll just need to be really careful about how we're consulting and engaging there. Oh, there's the big question. How will program information from PSIs be collected? Really great question. Going forward with the program project team, our goal, as much as possible, program information will be collected through the system, will be as much as possible automatically validated through rules applied in the system, as much as possible. Are there going to be exceptions to that? Perhaps. There may be some manual intervention points when SABC staff need to get involved, but as much as possible, our goal is for all institutions to enter their program information through the system. Does that answer the question of who asked that? It wasn't David. Does that answer your question?
I just wanted to ensure that we would have a bulk upload for the many programs that some institutions offer, but we are intending it to be incorporated into here rather than a separate process.
Yeah, so we absolutely have in scope the idea that an individual or a user will add an individual program. And we also know that UBC and some of the larger schools may not be interested in doing it one by one, but that they need to what we call bulk upload. So absolutely, that's part of the scope. Yep. So then we get to why the renewal now requires 2 different. So it doesn't require that. We were simply showing you that it could. So for example, if Zoe is asked by David to go in and get everything ready, but we still need David to sign it. But David could go in, get everything ready and sign it. That's totally doable as well. So it's certainly not required, but we wanted to show you that ability as well. So because we still need to make sure that the right person signs the agreement. That's the critical piece that we're making sure. Helpful to confirm our terms for those institution officials involved. Yeah, totally agree that we still need to do a little bit of tweaking and the legal kind of stuff. So what you're seeing is absolutely a rough draft of it. We know we need to have some of the legal terms and just make sure that it's all above board. So we'll definitely make sure to do that. This is just that. It's going to kind of look like this. And then, of course, the dev team needs to build it. And then we need to make sure that we have all the right legal language in there. Absolutely. It's one flow. Looks really solid. Thank you so much. That's great. Helpful to confirm our terms. Got that. Signing authority, I think we've answered that. Any other questions or concerns? And again, just a reminder that this isn't the final version, especially when ROOP and the UX UI team are showing you stuff. That's their kind of vision, and we still, the dev team hasn't built it yet. So we still need to hand it over, and there's still definitely going to need to be some spit polishing and those kinds of things. But in general, we're saying here's how we think it's going to work and generally what it's going to look like. And so we know we need to do some more of the tweaking and language and that kind of stuff.
And it looks like Neve has her hand up, so go ahead. And
just in reference to my comment about the terms, I'm not talking necessarily about legal terms, more the different roles that we're talking about and using, like, the policy manual describes those roles. So using the language in there so we're not confused about who we're talking about. So we don't have a legal signing authority, even though I think I know what we mean by that. I think for us on the team, just understanding how, whether if we're going to use new terms, how those map to the terms in the policy manual.
Right, yeah, and so that's a mistake on our part. There's no plan for us to use new terms. It should say legal authorized authority. So these are some of the things that we just we haven't cleaned up yet. So that's an error on our part. So we'll try and do that as we go forward, for sure. Any other thoughts or comments? There's a comment about bulk upload will be enabled. Yes. Yeah, bulk upload is it's an interesting conversation when we talk about bulk upload. What does that mean? What do you need to do? How do you do it? The project team is also going to be helping support that work with the institutions and starting to help us figure out what does this look like as we move to a new way of doing things. What's the impact of this on institutions? What system changes do they need to make? Do we need to make? Are there some workarounds? It's opening a whole can of worms, and we're looking forward to working that through, but it's going to be a complex piece of work because, of course, each public institution uses the system a little bit differently, and they have multiple systems of their own that they have. So we're in the midst of the thick of that, I think is the expression, and lots of wading through to make sure that we really understand how do they use the system, how can they use the system, ensuring privacy controls, pardon me, privacy legislation is complied with, and of course trying to minimize any massive changes for them where we can. But also achieving our goal. It's going to be challenging work. It's going to be pretty exciting though, and really get us to a better place in the long term where we're more aligned with our partners and ready for future changes as well. So pretty exciting. Any other questions for now, or are we? No. Okay. Well, I will hand it back to you, Caitlin, to close us out then, because I think we're.
Yes. Well, thanks everyone for coming. At the most we had I think over 60 people joining us, and so it's just like wonderful to see. Thank you all for your thoughtful questions and also for your support and continue